my whole motivation is that we are blessed to be here. We've been on this planet and we get one body. And that's it. Like, we get one chance to look after this body to the best of our ability. That is my whole driver. That is my whole motivation. I don't need anything more. I don't need to read a book, hear a quote, listen to a podcast, see anybody. That's it for me. That drives me every single day without fail, because I can go in my garage by myself every day with no outside output, nobody cheering me on, and I can just kick the ass out of myself because of that one thing.
This video is for educational entertainment purposes only. Hey everybody, I'm here today with Chris Rigby. Chris is a veteran of the fitness industry. He's established CrossFit affiliates in the Middle East. He led sales teams for Alico, and now he works as an online coach where he's helped thousands of people transform their lives and their bodies. Chris, thanks so much for being with me here today.
No, an absolute pleasure, and it was good to connect when we first did, and then it leads round to us really engaging and hopefully sharing some information and knowledge other people can benefit from, and obviously just having a good conversation.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to get into it. So I know actually this weekend you had an event. I wonder if you couldn't tell me about that and then maybe get a little bit into your backstory, sort of what led you to be the kind of person that spoke at this event this weekend.
The event I just went to just Friday gone, so just before the weekend, was one at it was a supplement brand, and basically it was debunking a lot of fitness myths. That was the whole purpose, and also the connection with people from the brand and everything. But it was just a whole talk with industry experts, doctors, researchers, some Olympic athletes there, sharing different insights and different visions, I guess, and lenses through what is strength conditioning, what is health, what's recovery. And yeah, I flew basically the full length of the country there and back in a day to go to the event. So that's how good it was. Plus it was at McLaren. It was at McLaren Performance Centre in the UK, which was incredible. Like, the location was immense. Just the location itself, being there and working with a brand that hosts events like this at a high prestigious place, just shows the level that they're putting into their coaches and people who work with them. But no, it was all about just really debunking fitness myths, sharing knowledge and information. And I guess for me now in the fitness industry, and I guess in the world, being able to shake hands and meet people for real, which has gone out the window a lot. Of course, technology is amazing and it's connecting us right now, but I think there's nothing better than really shaking a hand and meeting someone to solidify relationships and connections.
No, definitely. I mean, I feel like one of the best, maybe the most important aspects of fitness is that it's real and tangible. Do you happen to know the punk band Black Flag? Does that mean anything to you?
It doesn't, but tell me.
Yeah, so Black Flag was like I think they were in the 70s and 80s, and their lead singer is a guy named Henry Rollins, and he was really into weightlifting, and he has this amazing quote about how the bar never lies to you. And I always think about that, right? Like, you can go through your life, you can lie to yourself, you can sort of play these tricks on yourself, but one of the beauties of the gym and the beauties of real life is that real life is real, not like what you and I are doing right now, which again, it's nice, it's cool, it's nice to be able to connect, but there's definitely something that's lacking in this for sure. And so I wonder for you, when you go to an event like this, you mentioned that the focus is on supplements. Is your primary kind of interest as a coach, as an athlete? Are you more interested in supplementation? Are you more interested in strength and conditioning? Are you more interested in nutrition? All of the above? Like, what's your kind of personal passion among those things?
Yeah, great question. I think it evolves over time. And when you start, like, I'm 41 now, and when I first started going into the gym, it's all about one thing, getting jacked, looking good, and then getting girls. Simple. That never changes, I don't think, in a guy. That always stays the same. But when you get married, or when you have kids, and when you develop through as a person and in your life, fitness has to mean something more to you than that. And I think I always encourage people to find that, or we discover what it is. And for me now, it is I'll kind of use a bit of the cliche words, but I genuinely mean them. It is about longevity, but it's about fun and enjoyment on that path. I think the biggest the best results will always come from simplicity and consistency, and then that has to be easy for people's lives. That's when you're going to get the most results, because they're going to be able to do it continuously for a long time instead of doing crazy fads for 6 or 8 weeks. Can they work? Yes, of course. But we're not going to be in this shred cut for 8 weeks for the next 8 years. I think things mean fitness and health is very individual, but as a whole, the way I coach now and what I've done for a long time is looking at things. Are you moving well? How good is your eating? And genuinely, like, how good is your sleep and recovery? Just to kind of also echo one of the things that was said a lot at the weekend that I went to this event at, was train for your purpose. And whatever your purpose is, if it looks and creates that outcome and gets you closer to that purpose, that's how you should train. Then as a coach, we work with clients to help them understand that and how that can be. But the purpose is very different for different people. So therefore, we reverse engineer that slightly and just say, well, the paths are very different for different people. Some people might have one or two elements really locked in. We look at people especially in bodybuilding, super strict, look potentially amazing sometimes. But then when you look at their mental health, a lot of the time within their training, that's missing, and it leads to other things people don't see, like relationships, or again, mental health issues, or depression, or anxiety, and then having body dysmorphia. No one sees that. So we can always fix or elevate an element in areas to make it more wholesome. And I would definitely say, especially now and for the last, number of years, making it simple, but really dialing in the basics first. So to answer your question in relation to supplements, training, and nutrition, supplements for me are always that extra 5-10%. We could say it's 2% or whatever, but supplements just make things better and easier, right? And when you look at a lot of research and science and data, a lot of the supplements that are floating about now don't really do anything. Not really. You're talking like tiny percentages in very high performing athletes anyway. So they're just trying to get that extra little bit. It's the general population and the people I coach, and most coaches coach, the main supplements that you will be looking at is for ease. Protein shakes, because it's easier to drink a protein shake. Not because it's a protein shake, just it's easier. Creatine is a big one. I'll be honest, I got reinforced a lot of information. Creatine is probably one of the most powerful, beneficial supplements of this last generation and the one before, and it's going to lead now into more research going into cognitive improvements with creatine. But creatine's been highly researched, and that is like one of the doctors at the event described creatine as your battery, your body's battery, and it was a really good way to describe it. So you've got energy systems and cycles within your body, ATP, and creatine helps buffer and improve this. So if you want to have your battery fully charged, take creatine. It'll help that battery improve for your energy output. And creatine, the reason why it's so beneficial as a supplement is we just can't get enough from food to reach the levels of fully saturation for our muscles. Regardless, you would have to be eating a super high meat diet, because that's where it comes from, and the quantities would be silly. So, and creatine as well, it's three amino acids. So it's cheap to produce. It's made in a lab, and basically we can have huge benefits from creatine. But prior to that, again, just going back to the original question, are you eating right? Are you moving well? Is your recovery decent? How are your stress levels? Let's get those fixed or at a better place before people then start trying to think a supplement is going to solve all their problems. So I think supplements are very good, very easy, especially like I said, sachets, electrolytes, protein bars, protein shakes, great. But get the basics right first, because a supplement will never fix you, regardless what it is. You know, even and even if we go to the top end of things, like looking at performance enhancing drugs, steroids, or different kind of peptides, or other drugs, if that person is still not locked in, if they're not performing high, if they're not dedicated, if they're not looking after their diet or their training, that supplement's essentially also not going to work. Of course, it'll have effects, but it's not going to produce the outcome you want. So regardless what it is, people think a supplement, oh, if I take this fat loss pill, I'm going to lose weight. You know, it's like, no. It's either going to make you not want to eat and suppress your appetite, so therefore you're going to lose weight, or it's just going to give you a bit of a elevated heart rate and a bit sweaty because it's got some stimulants in to do that, and you're just going to feel on edge. And yeah, it's and you're not going to be able to lose the weight unless you put the work in. So for me, it's very foundational. Get your foundations right in all areas, and then top it up with the supplements to make you even better at the top end.
I think it's that word you said is easy. Supplements are easy, and people like easy, simple solutions. If you tell someone that you can take a pill and get better results, they're going to do it. And I totally agree. Creatine is great. Protein is great for convenience. I think in particular, I often recommend things like vitamin D. I imagine in the UK, because of the sunshine, vitamin D can be useful. But again, these things are all icing on the cake, right? This is not going to, particularly in the UK, right, with the legality of steroids, I'm sure that you walk around in any random gym and it might be a quarter of the people who are on PEDs, but I'm sure a quarter of the people do not look like they're on PEDs. That's for sure, because it just doesn't, it's only a Band-Aid. It's only icing on the cake. And if that's a shitty cake, it doesn't matter what you put on it.
I love that analogy, and that's exactly the way I'd put it as well. You're exactly right, and I've spoke to probably hundreds of guys throughout my time in the gym, and who are on cycles of things and everything, and I look and I'm shocked because of the way they look, and not even the way they look. Let's go one step deeper. The work or the way they perform, like, is poor. And this isn't me like knocking anyone, but it's just factual. You know, they're not very strong, or they don't look very good, and they can't really move very well, but they're on all these PEDs. And then I'm trying to understand the correlation between their logic, their performance, and there isn't any. So you don't look very good, you're not very strong, and your performance level on a sports basis, let's say like athletic performance, it's quite poor. And you're putting your health at risk because a lot of them don't have no clue what they're doing. So you're like, okay, there's 4 huge factors, and you're trying to improve them just with an injection or a tablet. And it's like, bro, wow. You know, like, your diet's poor. You go out drinking every weekend. You're taking other drugs on weekends. You're not really training very, very well because it'll be sporadic. And it's crazy. And that is a lot of the population within the PED population in terms of people who do it. And you'll have seen it in and out of gyms endlessly, even right now. You know, there was a guy who I used to go to school with, and I would see him in the gym every day. Great guy, good heart, but he would just be a bit crazy. And every week he's like, "Oh, I'm taking this and this and this." I'm like, "Oh, what?" It confused me as this is like in my 20s, and thankfully, even to this day, I know a lot more than what I did when I was young, but I was always very conscious and worried. And the reason why I didn't take anything when I was young at all was because I did have no clue what it would do when I was older. None. And I was performing well. I was playing football. I was pretty strong. I looked pretty good. And then I'm like, well, he doesn't look very good, and he's on all these drugs, and I don't even know what they are. Like, where's the correlation and the logic? There wasn't any. So it didn't, like, it didn't attract me to them. It didn't tempt me. The only way back then, when I was in my 20s, that you'd look at is like Mr. Olympians and the beasts of the generation, and I never wanted to be like that. So yeah, it's a crazy one.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're performance enhancing drugs, but if you're not trying to perform, what function do they do? Right? Like you're missing the purpose of it. They're not just
Yeah.
magic.
I was going to say, even when I guess a lot of guys don't want performance per se, they want bulk. So they just want to get bigger, right? You know, and can they get away with just taking something that can improve their appetite and lift a bit more? Yes. Can it work? Yes. So they get a bit bigger, but they just go the wrong kind of bigger a lot of the time because they haven't got everything dialed in. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So you had mentioned a while back, you talked about interacting with bodybuilders and sort of how physically they might look good, right? They might perform well, but mentally, right? Maybe there's issues, maybe there's lack of confidence, maybe there's some obsession, too much focus on themselves and their body. I'm curious for you when you work with clients, when you do kind of an intake process, how do you
Mm-hmm.
how do you evaluate someone? How do you figure out kind of where they're at, maybe both in terms of their mentality and their lifestyle?
Yeah. Again, love that question. And I always ask a very, again, you'll find me trying to simplify everything all of the time. And I ask them a very simple question. Obviously, they've made the effort or reached out to me to speak to me initially. So that means they are in a place they don't want to be at. So it indicates they're looking for improvement. And that would go for everybody. If I want to learn a language, I'm at zero. If I want to learn Chinese, I'm at zero right now. So I'm looking for a coach to help me get to 10 and 20, right? So they're at a place they don't want to be. They want to learn more and improve things. So the question I'll always ask is like, where are you now? Like, how do you feel? Where are you now? And then we'll go into different elements with training and lifestyle and time management is a huge thing. And where do you want to be? And when we create in my process, when we create an A to a B, we have a place and we have a destination. If I can always prioritize the focus of that individual on the destination, we then create the steps to get there steadily. And I'll always kind of break it down and inform a lot of people. It's not an overnight process. It could take 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. But again, that again goes on the individual of how fast they want to get there. So I'll always create this mindset of, okay, we're here, we want to get there. So current place and destination. And then it's my job as a coach, and I think a lot of coaches' jobs, to map out the route we're going to take to get there. But keep in mind all the time the destination. If people always focus on where they're going to be and be in a better place, a lot of the time, all of the hard work and things in the middle can become a bit less stressful. Where if we look at that from another perspective, what a lot of people do, just in life and in general, is they look how hard it is and the steps they have to take to get to the destination rather than always believing in the outcome at the end. So therefore, they've I've got to get up at this time. I've got to go shopping and do this. I've got to meal prep. I've got to do this workout. Oh, but I'm going on holiday on that weekend, and then I've got a friend's wedding, and then I don't think I can get 3 sessions in. I've got my kids to pick up, and this. I'm like, well, okay, you've already failed. You're already failing in your head right now in this conversation before we've started. What about if we just work through those processes and never forget the destination? So I think a lot of the time with coaching as a fitness coach, and you do become a little bit of and a lot of fitness coaches will be able to relate to this. You start becoming a little bit of a bit of a counselor to someone's situations, and you listen to their problems and we try and fix them. But I think changing the mindset or just a thought process on things in a simplified way. And I use certain techniques, psychological techniques as well, that I've read up on and learned over time and seen how people respond to them. But I really believe in creating a present and then a future improved destination to then get them to visualize that so they never forget why they started or what they're doing along the way. Every training session, is it going to be nice? Not most of them will be, but some of them won't be. Will you be perfect and feel really good in every training session or when you wake up to go training or do your food or anything like that? The answer is no. But we never forget the destination. And it's funny as well. A lot of people are very selective of the effort they put in towards certain destinations. So They can be locked in because they're going on holiday for in 8 weeks' time or 12 weeks' time, because it's a holiday. It's this in society, your holiday is like a special thing. So they'll lock in for that, then they'll get back and they're like, oh, I've got nothing to go to now, so I'll just kind of let it slide and go back to normal or what they were doing before. My brain doesn't work like that because, and I think I said to you when we first spoke, my destination is life. It goes deep and it goes into belief systems, and regardless if people are religious or not, but it can go into a belief system you have. When you're a parent or a husband or a provider, what about making that your destination and desire to improve? And that's never left me from being a kid. I'll be honest. And you can use different life events to I think kickstart those things and belief systems and everything. But we've got to reset a lot of people's mindset to it not just being short term and like fancy goals. It can be, well, what about like my training now in my head, as well as it being very present? It's also, I know it's going to benefit me when I'm in my 60s, 70s, and 80s. And that is genuinely how my mind works. I love it in the moment, but I know all the things that I've done for the last 20, 30 years has improved my life today. I'm not in the shape I am, and that's not an arrogance thing. I'm not in the shape I am, neither are you, for one gym session. You're not in the shape that you are because you've just done things for a week. You've done it consistently over time. And if we just take that understanding and experience to then continue it, when we know in our 50s and 60s and 70s, if we keep this up, we're going to be a healthier, more able, active 60, 70, 80, 90, 100-year-old. You know, I want to live past 100. That's my 110. That's my goal. I'm not even kidding you. This is like what I want, you know, and I'll do everything I can to get there. And that's the journey for me. But I'll break it up into cool little aspects as well along the way, like your holiday, like a fitness competition, you know, like a wedding that you're going to go to. They're the cool things, but never forget the bigger, deeper picture. I think that everyone does forget or doesn't recall a lot of the time. Yeah.
AJ here. If you're enjoying this interview, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it makes a huge difference. And if you're looking to transform your body and your mind without jeopardizing your health, consider hiring me as a coach. Links in the video description. Appreciate you. Yeah, man. No, really, really well said. Couple thoughts and then a question. I really liked your analogy about learning Chinese, because that's such a foreign thing for most people. And I think if you're sitting here and you've never spoke a word of Chinese and you're trying to imagine yourself as a fluent speaker, that feels impossible, right? That's so far away from your current experience. You're not going to get there. But as you said, you have to both focus on the goal at the end and the steps along the way. And if you break it down into these small, bite-sized, actionable chunks, you'll be able to learn Chinese. Lots and lots of people have done it. And the way you do it is doing it over time, like you said, the same way we've built up our bodies. It's not one session. It's not one thing. It's just that repetitive, consistent effort over time. I really love that. And obviously the notion of having a why, man, that's something, I don't know, again, you know, you and I you're in the UK, I'm in the US, so there's some similarity between our cultures, but obviously some differences too. And I will say one thing that happens to a lot of people in America is that they just stop giving a shit. And what happens is, I think what it is that people get used to misery. They sort of stop noticing it. It's almost like it's adaptive, because if you were miserable all the time, it would be too hard. And so maybe you numb yourself with drugs and alcohol. Maybe you distract yourself with TV. Maybe you just aren't present, right? You don't need to have drugs to do that. You can just kind of coast through life and not actually be driving. And I think people are good at that, right? Like in some ways that is a positive thing, right? Like if you were living in a war zone, it would probably be good to be able to check out, right? Mentally, you know what I mean? But those kinds of adaptations, those behaviors also keep us stuck, because they keep us in these miserable circumstances because we're just not present. And I wonder for you, you know, my question, when we spoke the last time, you talked about when you were in your 20s, you just like did a bunch of stuff, right? Like you left your home, you went to the Middle East. Do you think that there's something, you talked here a little bit about having a why. Do you think that there's something unique about you, or what is it that sort of allowed you to move forward, perhaps in contrast to the people around you?
I absolutely love that question again. There's a couple of layers to this. Thankfully, and I was blessed with yeah, good parents and good opportunities. Like growing up and coming having an amazing mom and dad, and we grew up. We still to this day we have horses and land. So when I grew up, my granddad had, I don't know if I told you this before, but we've got 10 acres of land around where we live, and my mum still has horses on there. So my mum's in her 70s now, goes up, rides them all the time. But when I was a kid, it was my granddad's land, and he had we had a bit of a farm on there. So we had some cows, some goats, we had a hay, like a whole field that we used to bale for the hay, for the horses, shed. And he used to have a wood mill. So his job really was providing all the wood and the sticks for all the fires in all the surrounding villages. But he'd also make cool things out of wood and sell those things. So, and big logs and everything like that. So growing up, it was very outdoorsy. And we used to, we built our shed. Our stables and our hay shed, like a big hay shed. If fences need fixing, I remember as a kid carrying probably 30-kilo wooden posts up to the top field, which would be like 800 meters or a kilometer away, to hammer them in. And this was just regular. This was completely normal, right? And that was normal for me. So then other kids that didn't do it, you don't know because they don't do it. So I think I had a good environment to be in, to be very active as a person. And really, when I reflect on this, not knowing at the time, and seeing again my aunties and uncles who were from a village, who are like very strong physical people, and my granddad who was a very strong, like he used to rip all the nettles and thorns out with his hands, you know what I mean, like proper all that kind of stuff. I learned to drive at I think 11 years old in our field because we used to put the hay bales on the back of our truck, and me and my brother and my friend would drive around, and it was like the coolest shit to do, basically. So reflecting on that, I learned from a very early age how using your body was beautiful. Like it was just immense. And then I'd obviously play football as a sport, play rugby, but also ride horses. So I had all these elements going on. So be physically active, riding the horses, doing some show jump, cross country jumping, let's say, on the horses. And we had and that's the reflection on that. So I was very lucky to have that not a lot of people have. But again, I grew up in the 90s, so we just knocked on friends' doors, and that's how we would play out. There was no phones, no social media. That's if anything I would want to give to my children now, it would be that childhood, because it was genuinely an amazing childhood in terms of how we used to relate to everybody. Have fights with other kids from different schools and go meet on a field. Genuinely, that's what we used to do. Things like that. So as I grew up, a very tragic thing happened to me when I was 18. I was in a car crash. I'll kind of keep it really simple or summarize it. But I was in a car crash with my best friend at 18, and he was driving the car. Another friend was in the car, and a long story short, he crashed the car when we were driving. He was driving a bit fast, but nothing crazy. He just lost control on a road that we drove 100 times, or more. And the car flipped. Me and my other friend walked out. I cut my eye, cut my forehead, cut my arm. That's all we got. And my best friend in that car crash, he was driving and he died on that night. And it didn't die instantly. It was the next day in hospital, but I was sat by his side. And to go through that at 18, I questioned life. And for a long time, again, now I had survivor's guilt for a long time, but I had no clue. I'm very I don't trust people with driving, even still to this day, unless I really know them, because it's just in me. But that event, God, you'll never wish that on anybody, but it changed a perspective in me. And I'll always try and pull a positive, or I've got to understand things. you know, and I think a lot of people don't try to. But the only way I could process and understand what happened, because it wasn't fair. I didn't get. I used to always say, why didn't three of us get seriously injured instead of one dying and two walking away? You can't process any of this in your brain, and you'll never be able to process this. It's answers to questions that will never come. And the way I dealt with it was it had to mean something for me to have walked away from that. There was some force, again, I believe in God. So it, there was a reason why I was kept on this planet and why he was taken. You know, maybe he's wanted elsewhere, and you can go into all that side, but it just gives me another element and drive of trying to make something and mean, like make something of your life and make something mean something. So again, at 18 years old, you're processing who you are, never mind this event at the same time. But I've always tried to spin it, always used it as a buffer to really drive a lot of decisions on. Not kind of YOLO, like you only live once and do anything today because you might die tomorrow. Not that kind of attitude, but it was genuinely, things can happen and you don't know when they're going to happen. So let's try and make the most of what you can control. And I think that's taken me forward with a lot of the decisions that I've made throughout my life. That was when I was 18. The police who dealt with that incident didn't deal with it very well, in my opinion. The police officers weren't very good. They were kind of accusing us as being young kids of something, which was crazy. And we're like 18 because it happened at midnight. They're like, why are you driving at midnight? I'm like, my friend's just asking me questions like this at a time when my best friend was seriously injured and like died later on. And they're asking stupid questions. And yeah, 18. And I was like, if I ever join the police, I'm going to make a difference and not be like that. So at 21, I actually joined the police. So that led me to joining the police to make a difference and fix a part of that I thought was broken. Served 8 years in the police, and towards the end, I realized it wasn't for me for the rest of my life because of probably genuinely the politics and the systems are pretty broken. Again, in the US and the UK, even back then, you know, I joined in 2005 and left in 2012. Or it might have been 2011, whatever it was, end of 2011. You lose track of time, but yeah, did 7.5 years in the police, learned a lot, seen a lot, never regret it. But the day I joined was the best day of my life at the time. The day I left was the best day of my life at the time. You know, crazy. I was so thankful for that time because I've seen another side of society that regular people you'll never see. The best way I can describe being in the police to being out is, especially in the UK, maybe certain areas in America and in the UK it'll be different, but genuinely for most of the population, the day I left the police, I didn't see 99.9% of what you see from being a week in the police. It's like everyone's blissfully ignorant to what really happens in crime, and not even just crime, just incidents, you know, like a missing person, a sudden death, a fraud, a theft. Not like, I'm not just talking about violence. There's all the other elements of policing people don't see. But you don't see any of it. Once you leave, it's not there anymore. So the general population, in my opinion, don't know what truly goes on the other side of society that the police deal with. So you've got to have that respect from the police, but then there's the other side of the police of being actually correct in how they behave when they deal with incidents, which is a huge another debate. And we're not going to go into that one. But
No.
but I left the police based on probably my attitude or lessons I learned through Scott, who was my friend who died. Through his, it was kind of, I wasn't fully happy. I needed to change something. Things can happen unexpectedly. If I need to change it, why not? You know? And I had the belief and confidence in myself to be able to then make the changes. So I left. I actually then came out the US and played football out there for a couple of nearly 2 years and coached out there for a while in New York. Then I came back, and again, Another tragedy. My dad had got cancer and it came on really quick. And my dad passed away when I was 28, when he was 70 years old. He got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a blood cancer. And it took him quite quick, like really quick. And that was a big reflection. You've got so many, because you never think your parents are going to go anywhere. Not when my dad was fit and healthy and he'd never been sick a day in his life. So that was another thing. And shortly after, like 3-4 months after my dad had passed away, I went out to the Middle East because a friend came and said, I'm running a fitness boot camp and I've met someone who wants to set up a CrossFit gym. I just started doing CrossFit at that point. He literally lived in Qatar in the Middle East. He'd been about there 6 months. And he said, do you want to come out? I was like, fuck yeah, why not? I was like, why not? I genuinely, because my dad had passed away, I'd just come back from the US. I didn't have a job. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's do it. So I went out there with a one-way ticket, ended up being out there like 5.5 years. So to answer your question in a way, I think I've always not wanted to settle for things. If I've ever been unhappy, I will look to change it. And I've always had the confidence in myself that I can do that. And I do look with what you said, a lot of people are happy just being numb and cruising on autopilot. It's never been how I can be satisfied as a man, as a person, as a human, whatever. And I think it will all always come back to like drive and feeling and physical ability. If you're mentally numbed, you'll never feel at your best. And yeah, the physical side of everything has always driven me to find passions in things and take the opportunities that I've done. But again, it's also the mental side to be like, okay, how can we make this work? Having a bit of logic and have a bit of sense and savviness and just grasping opportunities, because if you don't grasp them, you'll never know.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing all that, man. And I'm sorry, obviously, about your friend and your dad. I will say you used a word when you were talking about how you processed your friend's death. You used this word. You said spin it. How am I going to spin it? I will say
Yeah.
that's something that I noticed very consistently with people who are successful, people who achieve things. The stories that they tell about their life are positive, inspiring stories. Maybe they're stories about terrible things that have happened, but they find a way to tell those stories in such a way that it propels them forward and it doesn't keep them stuck. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of things like PTSD, right? You mentioned some survivor's guilt. Part of what happens with things like real trauma is you get stuck. The story you keep telling yourself is on repeat and you can't sort of find your way out of it. And I think it's commendable, speaks well to your character, maybe to your family and your background, right? But you found a way to make meaning out of something that was terrible and random. Because it was, right? Like as you said, right? I really loved, I mean, I thought it was really honestly brave of you to share that thought. Like, why couldn't it have been that we all got hurt a little bit instead of just one, right? Like that's fucked up, right? It's totally right. Like, why did it have to be that way? And you're right. There is no, there's no answer to that question, but you came up with an answer. Like you told this story to yourself in a way that let you move on. And I think I think that's great, man. So I just really appreciate you sharing that with me.
No, I appreciate that. And yeah, you're right. I think as people, we have choice and you choose your path. And I could have went one way, and some people go that way, drinking drugs and ignoring everything and blaming everything and going down that deep dark path like that. That only leads to one outcome. The choice I made was never to do that. It didn't even enter my head. So technically, I'll be honest, it probably wasn't a choice because I never thought of going to that way and dealing with that. But I think accountability with choices now gets so passed on in this society right now. People are the weakest they've ever been because they can't be accountable for their choices, and everyone has that. We're so blessed to be in countries that allow us to do that right now and have different paths and choices. People don't realize how lucky they are, moaning about stupid shit all the time, when ultimately they are their own pilot of their destination because of the choices they make. And when you genuinely ask unhappy people, or people who want change, or are in either jobs or situations they don't want to be in, if you backtrack it and again just look at the path that they've chosen to go down, or actions they've taken or not taken, you'll find some trips up along the way where they could have chose something different. They put themselves, not all, but I'll say a very, very, very high percentage of people are in the place they're in, if they're unhappy, chose to be unhappy in some form, or made a choice that wasn't correct. They were either trying to please other people, or just didn't know, or didn't seek the information. But again, you've got the choice to do that. And yeah, I had that choice of where do you go with what's happened. And even my dad passing away, got so much regret with my dad. And I've talked to, I have a life coach as well, and I've spilled my heart out to him about this. But I wish I'd asked my dad more questions, you know, and just asked him more about his life. And I think every kid who has parents doesn't really do that, because you think they're going to be there tomorrow and the next day, and you can ask it later. So one element, or one way I try and flip that now, is like, I have two children, 16-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old boy. And I just want to be as open and sharing with my children that I can be, so they can always ask me anything. But I'll also make the effort to tell them. And I think because of my dad's generation, he was born in 1942. My dad was a great, amazing guy, full conversations. But I think some generational things keep them a little bit more closer, bit more old school, you know. And yeah, wasn't like as active in sharing everything as potentially we can be now. Just a generational thing. So yeah, I wish I'd really asked him more stuff. So the point I'm making there is, all right, how can I make sure my kids know things about me that they want to know? You know, maybe my 6-year-old won't understand everything yet, but when he gets older, I make sure I'm going to tell him about my life, tell him about things that have happened, ask him about what I did as a kid, and share these things, you know, so he understands who I am as a person and how I grew up. I'll never forget one of the stories my dad always used to tell me with, it was like the cane at school. Like, he was at school, like a primary school, probably in the 50s, you know, and we laugh about things like this, where I think he got the cane like 3 times and that was it. You never get it again, because he remembers like the first time was bad. He got it again the second time, which obviously the headmasters or whatever they did back then would smack the back of their hands and the back of their legs. And he went, third time, I will never disrespect a teacher ever again in my life. You know, that for me should be brought back into school right now. It might shape a couple of kids up. But genuinely, like, he would share that story and a few other things. And yeah, I tell you what, really cool thing about my dad. He was 18 at the time. Was he 18? I'll work it out. Anyway, he went. So England have won the World Cup. I don't know if you know this. They've won the World Cup once in 1966. My dad was a big football fan, played semi-pro football and everything when he was growing up. And yeah, England won the World Cup in 1966. He went to the World Cup in 1966, and I've still got the ticket and the program. So you get a booklet for the match, you know. Yeah, I've still got his ticket and program from the 1966 World Cup that he went to. He went from all the way up in the north of England all the way to Wembley, in the south in London to go to the World Cup. And he was one of the, again, I don't know what the stadium held then, maybe like 80,000 or 70,000. He was one of the only 70,000 people at the England World Cup final in 1966. Yeah. I just wish I knew more about him, and I wish I'd asked more questions. So, yeah, I think you can always take tragedies and sadness, and if you spin them right and have that right mindset, you don't have to know everything, because we don't even understand everything, you know. But we can spin them. We can use them for positive. And a lot of people don't understand that. They think they have to be sad if a sad event happens. Of course you're sad, but you can fucking use it to drive you and motivate you to do positive things. And yeah, that's how I look at things now. Yeah, and have done for a long time.
Yeah, no, very well said. Yeah, and you're right. We're not saying that people shouldn't feel sad. It's just that you can use those emotions to tell stories to let you do other things. That's all. And I
Yeah.
think maybe just thinking about a lot of what you've reflected on, you talked about your dad's love of football, your own background as a football player. You also talked about how training should be fun and that's important to you. So I'm curious, how do you actually train right now? What does that look like? Because I know you've done CrossFit before, right? You're a strong jack dude and you like to move. What do you tend to focus on in your own training?
Keeping strong, keeping jacked, and moving well. um,
Right, you like to keep it simple. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like honestly, that is genuinely the fundamentals of it. But again, I just believe you should honor your body and test it. Right? I genuinely, passionately love to train and test what I can do. So I've now the way I train, the way I lift, I put together elements of lots of different training, whether you want to call it CrossFit, Olympic lifting. I don't really like the word like, well, it is. It's like hybrid training, you know. But I've been doing this for. I stepped in the gym when I was 12 years old, and I'm 41. I've trained this way near enough for nearly 30 years. It's never changed the way I train. I've just wanted to use and utilize my body as a whole, like as one. So I'll run, then I'll do my cardio on the bike, then I'll lift heavy weights. And I'll be honest, my biggest shift in training method was when I started CrossFit back in like 2011, 2012, because I got introduced to Olympic weightlifting, which then purely put another element in mobility and strength on for me. I was already strong and I already was aesthetically good and decent, but I would also play football and do all my circuits and everything. But CrossFit really opened my eyes to the mythologies of CrossFit and it introduced me to Olympic weightlifting. So that to be good at Olympic weightlifting, you've got to be really strong to be good. And you've all got to have a lot of mobility to go with that and understand accessories and different mechanics within lifting and everything. So that really opened a whole nother level up of training for me. Then you look at like the powerlifting style, then you're looking at recovery, and then you're looking into like the heart and lung health for VO2. And then when you combine it up, for me, you get like a bit of a total package. So I like everything. I don't think one way is the best way. I don't think one way is the only way. I'm like, find a training method or style that you love. And I'll go and do a bodybuilding session as much as I'll do an Olympic weightlifting session and absolutely love them both. So the way I train now, again, I'll be honest, is to look good, to feel good, to test my body, but then also never forgetting the biggest reason is I'm honoring my body and for the rest of my life, like to keep fit and healthy. So when I write my programming myself, it'll all just be a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of accessory work, a lot of cardio. Um, I did a CrossFit competition last weekend. I did a CrossFit competition and went down to the bottom of the UK and did the British CrossFit British Masters Championship. Yeah, British Masters Championship, and won that in my division. So the last 8 weeks, I've been focusing on a lot of CrossFit skills that I would randomly do sometimes, but hadn't been overly like overly doing them. I'm talking about handstand walks, bar muscle ups, which I might do sporadically, which I can do because I've learned them in the past. But for the last like year or so, I've not done them very often. So because I was going into a competition for the last 8 weeks, I really dialed in on like pure CrossFit skills. You know, so when I went into the competition, there was no second thought or doubt like, oh, like, am I going to be good enough? I just made sure I sharpened the tools. So I already had the tools there. I was just sharpening them up. So again, just to answer that question, my training now is I'll kind of go back as well. And I should have said this at the very start. The number one thing for me in training is being strong. That's it. Like if I can choose one element of fitness or training, it's get strong. That's it. If you get strong, everything else for me becomes easier. Plus you're strong. So fucking hell, every guy wants to be strong, and every girl should want to be strong as well. Be strong, get strong, and then you can do all the other stuff over the top. But to answer the question is, yeah, lots of heavy lifting all the time, lots of good super sets and functional work with bodybuilding movements, lots of cardio, like gassed out, raising the heart rate, longer, shorter, medium, cool workouts. And then on the top of that, if I have an event coming up, like I did a High Rocks in April, I did a CrossFit comp like last weekend, I'll train here all the time. And then if I want to peak and sharpen up something, I'll just sharpen it up as I go along, you know? So that's probably the best way to describe my training now. And I don't plan to change that. Like now I've had a whole week off, actually. I haven't trained all week since the last competition. So I'm going to start back tomorrow. Just going to go back to heavy lifting, weightlifting, back squats, my Olympic lifting, a bit of cardio in there. And until something else comes up, I'll just keep training well and then sharpen the tools up as I go along. But I can do this because I've trained for so long and been very consistent. That's the other thing. That for a lot of people, I don't think they should aspire to be able to train like that. But I think I've built my foundations, and a lot of people need to build them first to actually get strong. If a guy comes and tells me he can lift 100 kilo deadlift, I'm like, okay, bro, that's good, but it's not strong. Let's get strong, like really strong. Yeah. So that's my training now. If that hopefully that breaks it down. So, but again, it's all fun. I enjoy my sessions. I want to open my training app that I've written, or sometimes I'll get a coach in to write for me, and I want to open my app and see my workouts and be like, yeah, man, I want to hit that workout today. And that's like, and a lot of my clients say exactly the same thing with me. They know they're going to open their app because I train people online. So they know they're going to open their sessions and be excited to test that workout or do that strength lift or something. And that feedback is so good because I always try to share methods. I'll never tell anybody something that I haven't either tried myself or know about. I always want to try and walk my walk and talk my talk and speak from experience. I'm not going to tell you about a vegan diet because I've never been on one. I can read about it and tell you to go and do your thing, but if a vegan comes in, I'm genuinely going to tell them, look, I could potentially write one for you, for example, or a diet plan or something like that. But I'm not a vegan and I'm never going to be one. So I'm just kind of guessing on your foods. Same for someone if they come to me and they're doing a marathon in like 4 months' time. I've never done a marathon in my life. I'll tell you to go and find a running coach who does marathons.
Yeah, I think the importance of having the real lived experience can't really be understated. And I definitely agree, being strong is just the best. There's just nothing better than being strong.
No.
If you have the choice to be strong or to be weak, you should always pick strong. And I do feel like people, particularly in the bodybuilding space, I think people forget that. Like the purpose of the gym is to get strong, man. Everything else, and as you said, then it makes everything else easier. And I am curious for you. I mean, I like how you talked about your training. It sounds like you maintain a sort of solid athletic and strength base at all times, and then you sharpen this up if and when needed. Do you still sometimes have explicit strength goals, like you mentioned your barbell back squat? Are there ever a period where you're like, you know what, man, I want my PB is 200 kg for 3. Like I really want to hit it for 5. Like, is that something that ever goes through your head or you work towards outside of a competition?
I would say with this now, I'll go through it. I'll kind of allow that to come quite organically now, right? So for me, winter time, which is kind of coming up, it's middle of September. Soon it starts to get like October, November time, especially in the UK, darker nights, colder days, colder nights. It's the perfect time for me mentally as well to say, all right, I'm going to eat more and get stronger. So if I'm going to set any strength goals, it's going to be in the winter. And you're right, like there's nothing better than hitting some PBs. And I was actually discussing this with a client. I've just wrote him up yesterday, a new strength cycle, or I wrote his week up for this week, and we had a 2-hour call this morning. And I actually once I'd written his week up, the things I said exactly to him today was a guy called Joe. He won't mind me saying any of this because he was actually telling me just today to put our conversation on a YouTube as a podcast. He told me that today. He's like, next conversation we have, record it and put it on YouTube. And I think I might start doing it. But it was just a client check-in. We spoke for 2 hours today. And I wrote his program up, and I actually said to him, I went, I actually might start. It was so good. Like for me, when I was writing it, I've written it so well. And I said, I think I'm going to do this myself and start this tomorrow as well. And I wrote it purely for him because we've created a goal for him, and he wants to be in the 1,000-pound club. So he wants to lift across the three main compound lift. It ends up being like 455 kilos. He wants to be able to lift 1,000 pounds, and just tick that box. So we're like, cool, bro, we'll get there before Christmas. He's not far off, so we're like, yeah, we'll get there across his 3 lifts. But so wintertime is always a good goal for me to set things. It's very hard when you've been training for so long to hit PBs. It's very hard. It's harder now than it is like when you first start. And that goes through just normal biological like systems and how your body works. So the things I'm going to have to do is genuinely put a little bit of size on to like really then dial in with the lifts, because I've lifted some decent numbers. So to hit them is going to be tough. But can I beat them? It's always a good internal challenge. And I think this winter there's a couple of things that yeah, I could definitely say, all right, bench press I'm very close to actually. One thing I was thinking the other week, can I hit a PB bench? And I was like, yeah, I can do that. I've got to beat a 165 bench. So yeah, I think I can do that. Yeah, it'll be like a 210 back squat. I'm not going to touch my deadlift PB, I don't think. I did hit a 270, but that was years ago. Weighing less than I weigh now because I was powerlifting. But I reckon if I hit like a 250 or a 245 now, I'd be happy. And I would call it like, it'd be a PB in the last 5-6 years, basically. So there is a few lifts. And then going at the Olympic side is like the clean and jerks and front squats and things like that. But again, I've hit like a 185 front squat. I don't know if I can get any more than that in. So it's as you get more experience and as you train really well for a long time, it's so hard to hit your PBs. But I'm going to try with some of them, definitely with a few. And I think as well, you've never hit all your PBs at once at one time. They've all been all over the place a little bit, depending on your training. But yeah, clean and jerk. I think I can. I think I can hit that and things. But it's winter time. I'll use it to hit my PBs. But I've got nothing planned. It's just a little bit of I would probably say a little bit of an afterthought in my head now. But it's always cool. They're the cool things, They're the really cool things. For me now, I don't need to do them, but you just want to do them as a guy. That's all you want. You want to hit them. Yeah.
No, it never goes away. I mean, I'm just a little bit younger than you. I'm 39, and right now I'm like week 7 of a bulk, and I would say that I'm at the point where every single session I'm doing is essentially the hardest session I've ever done in my life, right? Like in some form or fashion, everything is just a little bit harder, and I'm not always succeeding, right? Like I'm at that kind of bleeding edge where I'm pushing as hard as I can, and sometimes it works.
Is that because your weight and everything have increased?
Yeah, just inching up, right, over time. And it's just like, that's all I ever want, man. Like to just be in that zone where everything is just super, super hard. And, you either lift it or you don't. Like that's, I want to have that. And that, I think truthfully, like even as we age and those become harder and harder to reach, there's still ways to get that feeling. You can still challenge yourself regardless. I mean, one of the things you've repeated again and again is just how amazing the body is. And that's still true, man. Being fucking jacked and able at 60 is amazing. And that is still something that we can do. So, no, I'm excited for that. And maybe just to ask you kind of in closing, because we touched on a lot of different themes. What is it that you think, if you could give sort of one broad piece of advice to someone in their lifting journey, what would you say? What do you think that, either something that people are getting wrong or something that they should be focused on that perhaps they're not?
Again, good question. Um, I think a lot of people don't understand where they're going with their training or their journey. And and it would be to create some kind of, again, I'll say it again, I've repeated this, like a belief system around your own personal journey to keep you going. So present moment to a different destination, and understanding why you want to get there, the bigger picture. We zoom out a little bit and look at that. I think too many people micromanage or really dial in and focus on the small things when they're not getting the bigger picture right. I know that's very broad, and a lot of people won't truly understand it sometimes until they're in it or maybe experiencing it. But you've got to have a driver. You've got to have a fuel source within you. And if you don't create that yourself, you're going to stop at some point. So that's just it can be, like I said, like some belief system, a thought process, a mindset. That can be your fuel. But you've got to create it yourself and have it so you always understand why you're doing what you're doing. And look, younger kids, and even when I was younger, you're not really going to think like that. But a lot of people I coach in their 30s or 40s, I think it changes and it's quite dynamic and your journey evolves. So you then have got to create these things to make sure they're in place, especially if you've got kids and you're managing your time. So we don't just focus on you've got to get up early one morning. All right, that's hard. That's rubbish. You don't want to do that, but that's not the big picture. A lot of people lose sight or don't even think about it. So that's what I'll go into a lot with people in coaching is the mindset side, making sure they've got that in place to then drive everything else forward. And then the cool things though are keep it fun, and genuinely love how you're trained. Don't listen to a lot of the hype. If you question something and you've got an inkling it might not be right, question it and find someone who knows. Question everything. I do. And if someone tells me some information I'm not sure and I question them, either they're going to answer me back and prove it, or they're going to fall down and I'll call their bullshit. So it's and the fitness industry and marketing side of it is full of BS. So it's like question everything. No, get your fundamentals right. Lift heavy, eat well, enjoy your training, and then make it fit into your lifestyle a bit. And look at the bigger picture. Find a system in you and create your own fuel. That would be my philosophical view on improving everyone's training. We can go into like all the other mini things, but that would be it. It's create your own fuel that'll burn forever on your belief system of you as a human and why you want to perform well and feel well. I think I said this to you when we also first spoke, and it goes again, I would say another level of this. My whole motivation is that we are blessed to be here. We've been on this planet and we get one body. And that's it. Like, we get one chance to look after this body to the best of our ability. That is my whole driver. That is my whole motivation. I don't need anything more. I don't need to read a book, hear a quote, listen to a podcast, see anybody. That's it for me. That drives me every single day without fail, because I can go in my garage by myself every day with no outside output, nobody cheering me on, and I can just kick the ass out of myself because of that one thing. We get one body, we get one chance. That is as simple as it gets for me. Like that's it. And if people don't understand that, we got to find out ways to get them to do it. Or if they still don't understand that, then you're a lost cause, bro. You can go. There's no way you're gonna keep going. But yeah, that is it. We get one chance, one body. So why wouldn't you want to be the healthiest, the most optimal, and feel the best and perform the best and be the best husband and father and provider and role model? Why would you choose not to be the best that you can be? That's a choice. Why? And that the alternative to that, the opposite to that, I don't comprehend. It doesn't enter my brain. You know, it genuinely doesn't. I can't. If someone makes 20 excuses for me I just can't get it. I don't understand. And this will go on the brutal side of people who are fat and obese and lazy and all the rest. They'll give you every excuse under the sun. You know, every single one. There's a very tiny percentage of people who are medically obese. The rest are just eating too much and not moving enough. Why wouldn't you want to be the best you could be? So that's it.
No, very, very well said. It's a good, that's a good note to end on there. So yeah, appreciate you taking the time. This is awesome.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. Really thought-provoking questions there, and it taps into, again, I think a lot of not just the surface level stuff. It's trying to dig a bit deeper to understand other people's, like, my motivations and choices, or the why you make the choices. Yeah.